Welcome back! Today's video will be on the 101st Heroine, an otome isekai with a fantastic premise, but on execution, well, we'll get into that. There will be spoilers, so if you want to read it, do it now. Our protagonist, Evie Collins, a daughter of a tavern keeper, becomes the only commoner participant in the fantasy version of The Bachelor. And Evie is competing against 100 noblewomen of varying ages and statuses for the hand of the crown prince. And we are told multiple times that she can't actually win, as she's actually a pawn set by the royal family to keep the nobles in check. But as things progress, Evie and Violet, the royal wizard and host of the event, fall in love, and both become conflicted about the role Evie has to play, all the while having to contend with the attention and conflict that comes her way from being in such a powerful position. So, let's get into discussing our protagonist. Evie Collins is a down-to-earth tomboy, reincarnated from her past life in South Korea. She's generally content with her life, and only really applies to be in the competition to spite her ex-fiancé. But she accidentally ends up meeting a hidden criteria that nets her the position. Despite her being there kinda by force, her humble and lively nature, coupled with her ability to think fast on her feet, really won me over. She's also naturally kind and compassionate. When the crown prince, who had until now worn a mask in all his public appearances, takes it off before all the contestants to reveal his hideous visage. I mean some minor burns and a lot of facial cysts. I guess magical dermatologists don't exist in this world. So everyone is shocked by it, since he hasn't shown his face in public before. And unlike most of the other noble women who break down crying or screaming, Evie doesn't react with horror. When he point-blank asks what she thinks of his face, she replies that it makes her think about how he must have suffered, before asking him, "Doesn't it hurt?" He has no reply, but everyone is struck by her reaction. Compared to the others, she stands out through being down-to-earth. And she even sees herself as a side character, surrounded by all these rich and influential women. But she's got spunk, and she's not afraid to stand up for herself and for others, especially against the nobles. And it was super refreshing to have a tomboy main character like this. And, at least, that's how she started out. Because once she falls in love with Violet, she becomes a generic Mary Sue, who's obsessed with him and seems to be dragged around by the plot. And her being an isekai woman gets completely dropped. But enough of her. Let's go to the person who I've seen people say should have been the actual protagonist. From the start, Selena Rue Atier is shown to be an ambitious young woman with her eye on the prize. That is, becoming the crown princess. She starts out overconfident and haughty, looking down on those lesser than her, being proud of her intelligence and her proficiency in magic, expecting things to go her way and being frustrated when they don't. She's also the only other person, aside from Evie, not to have a horrified reaction at the crown prince. And her response to his question of, "What do you think when you see my face?" is essentially, "It would be disrespectful of me to comment about your appearance as a soon-to-be subject, and your appearance has no effect on your ruling power." It is deemed by all to be a flawless answer, at least until Evie steals the show with her empathy. So from that point on, her attention is on Evie as a rival. And unlike a lot of other villainous characters in this genre, Selena wants a fair fight, even getting upset when Evie doesn't take the competition seriously. But from there, something interesting happens. The two end up developing a friendship that's honestly the best part of this manhwa. Selena is a classic tsundere, showing her true feelings through her actions and not her words. For example, When a contestant later turns on Evie, Selena has her back and even shares her room with her. And Selena becomes concerned for Evie's happiness enough to try and get the Crown Prince to stop messing with her emotions, to just eliminate her and spare her more pain, which shows just how much she's grown to care for her. Selena tends to lead with logic in general, something which comes from her past. It's implied her mother abused her, and we get at least 2 single-picture flashbacks to a young Selena crying while her mother stands over her, and that led her to become the person she is today. But we never really get the full story, just the flashback image and an offhand comment from her mother. But it's pretty clear that the old hag smothered her creative talents to try and mold her into what she wants her to be. And at first, it seems like she succeeded. She's a typical dutiful daughter, but she still has a sense of propriety and fairness, which is refreshing to see, especially in this genre that's overflowing with almost demonically evil villainous characters. And overall, Selena is always entertaining to see and contrasts with Evie very well. But to prevent this from becoming all about Selena, let's move on to the love interest. Oh boy. This dude. What a fall from grace. For starters, I actually liked Violet at the beginning. He was charming and friendly, being presented as a magician and the secret twin brother of the Crown Prince. So if Evie and Violet are caught, there's bound to be a huge scandal surrounding the... Okay, look. I'm just gonna come clean with it because a lot of problems exist because of this twist. Violet is the Crown Prince. This dude with the facial cysts? He's a marionette that Violet puppeteers with magic. And the Crown Prince's appearance is what Violet used to look like. Apparently, having an immense amount of magical power will cause those burns and growths to form. And he needs to have control over his magic to prevent them from appearing at all. This whole campaign was plotted by Violet from the very beginning. Essentially, since the Empire is so powerful, he considers it impossible to find a woman of a similar stature to him. And since he doesn't really care who he marries, he pitched the idea to turn his hunt for a bride into a spectacle, and the noblewoman into mere entertainment. But Evie, of course, ends up being the one variable that shook his heart and changed things. He was initially intrigued because he found her unpredictable, but from there things grew. She stopped being a pawn to him by chapter 20. By chapter 37, he's mooning over what life could be like if she could win and be his wife. And she finally becomes a woman that he desperately wants but cannot have by chapter 40. And if that led to some great character development, where he strives to become a strong and just prince, despite his probably abusive and highly controlling upbringing, that would be great. But he straight up becomes a creep and a liar who toys with her and then mopes about it. Although from the start we're told that the Crown Prince is a heartless douchebag, so I guess I shouldn't be so surprised that he turned out to be trash. For about half the manhwa, he's almost always alluding to or directly calling Evie a tool for the royal family, but also going out of his way to behave in contradictory methods to make things easier for her. And it gets to the point where, at the end of season 1, he knows the best choice is to let her be disqualified. His father wants it, and he knows it's best for Evie, and he goes out of his way to propose a different way to use Evie for their goals, all the while mentally apologizing to her, but admitting that he can't let her go. To try and make some distance between them, he kisses her, and then plays it off by saying, "Oh wow, I just wanted to see what it would be like to kiss someone. You weren't taking that seriously, right?" To try and make her hate him. And he succeeds. After she cries and runs off, he collapses and cries about how that hurt him more than he thought it would. But he keeps going back and trying to fix things after screwing with her, before screwing things up again. And it always works. And all of this is before I went back to the manhwa for this video. And I completely forgot that Violet was planning on marrying someone else to Evie. So, the second male lead, Renok, is Evie's personal knight who chose to serve her for the competition. And despite being an all-around better dude, he's not the one that gets picked, of course. Renok is all for the marriage, even imagining what it would be like to have children and grow old with Evie. But I think we're forgetting someone's opinion on it. Oh yeah! Evie! Who is unconscious in the carriage while this conversation is taking place, and cannot give her opinion about this major life decision. And okay, look, I'm not playing devil's advocate, but the reason Violet brings this up is because of all the attention that Evie has gotten through being in the campaign, and the public following that she's achieved. All Evie had wanted by the end of this was to go back to her normal life, and now it would be impossible for her to do that. So he wants Renok, his trusted knight and ally, to be with her, to protect her, to keep her safe and happy while he can't. But again, Violet is making decisions for Evie, regardless of what her opinion is, and he knows she would not want this. Violet's biggest flaw is that he can't get out of his own way, which, given the life he's lived, is understandable. I mean, being so privileged that you can have anything you want, but so controlled that you have to keep your face hidden to the masses, yeah, I can see why he's so messed up. But that doesn't excuse it, especially since he still has options where he can be with Evie. See, even though he and Selena have already made a bargain that she become the crown princess, she brings up a rule that after the competition, the second and third place candidates can stay on as concubines, and he cuts her off, telling her not to allude to treating Evie in such a manner. And I remember thinking about how childish it was that he couldn't handle the idea of Evie as a concubine of all things when... Violet, you're the goddamn crown prince. Was life fair for you? Certainly not, when you can't even speak to your own father at eye level, so you know things aren't fair. And yet, instead of actively making plans to change things as the crown prince, be it trying to gain support from the nobles behind his father's back, or hell, even starting a coup, he just mopes about how unfair things are. Sure, it sucks that he can't marry the woman he loves and raise her to the most exalted status that he feels she deserves. But what Selena suggested wasn't bad. Think about it. Selena does not want a love relationship. So Evie won't be threatened by getting Violet's love and attention. She's purely in it for the position, which Evie has stated multiple times that she does not want or care about. And by that point, Selena and Evie were best friends, and Selena wouldn't want anything bad to happen to her. Besides, after all the time Violet spent jerking Evie around emotionally, they could finally be together. But no, all the way up to the end, he keeps messing with her, up until the grand reveal that he's the crown prince. He even visited her as the crown prince to confess his feelings, and she completely rejected him and felt nothing but disgust that he would try to keep her as a prize. Which makes Evie's reaction, after discovering that Violet is the crown prince, after lying to her, I shit you not, Never mind. I'm getting off track, let's get to the ending so I can continue. Okay, so I shit you not. At the ending, Evie and Selena are the last two contestants, and their final task is to go to the person they think is the crown prince for a dance. Evie, of course, runs up to Violet, because she loves him, and hugs him, and the fake prince explodes. Violet reveals himself as the crown prince, and Evie is completely cool with it. She's just like, oh, I understand why you had to do it, and that's that, after all the manipulation and lying. But the Emperor comes in, and is essentially like, haha, I got my own trump card. The commoners and nobles get to vote on who they want to be the crown princess, and I rigged it so that the nobles will win. And this is because the nobles will be able to vote as many times as they please, provided they have enough money, while the commoners can only vote once. Which is a pretty tyrant-like move, if you ask me. And guess what? Selena wins the vote. Evie is distraught, of course, but Selena, who has been sitting completely calm while the people cheer around her, is just like, nah, I refuse. And Evie wins, and oh my god, it just so happens to be on Evie's 20th birthday. And then at the end, Evie is filming a commercial in her family's tavern. All the characters reunite and congratulate her on her victory, and then Evie hears that the Emperor is coming. Violet is nervous, but Evie's like, it's okay, I know it'll end well because I'm the 101st heroine. And that is legit how it ends. These comments speak for me here. So, the manhwa dropped the ball on quite a lot of things. It was interesting at parts, and it had a lot of good ideas. There was this one scene early on where Evie bid farewell to a bunch of contestants that got eliminated. And as she was seeing someone off, one said she wasn't worried because she was the protagonist, before walking away happily. And Evie froze at that because so far she's the only person who knows that she got isekai'd. And soon after, Selena confronts her. You see, Selena has a magic pendant, and it reacts to Evie's presence and deems her an error in this world. And at that, Evie reveals to her that she's been reincarnated with her memories, and Selena's actually pretty cool with it, even revealing that a little over 50 of the contestants also sparked that reaction. Then they end up finding a contestant that reveals herself as another isekai lady, who had been reading a series called, drumroll please, The 101st Heroine, 101 books featuring every contestant, some of who had happy endings, others who didn't. And she isekai'd as the 50th heroine, after reading the first sentence of her story, and is now destined to marry Selena's brother. And while she doesn't spoil Evie and Selena's endings, she assures them that both of them are good. And then she's never seen again. The idea of multiple people being isekai'd is interesting, but it was just brought up and dropped. Sure, it's a lot of characters to juggle, but the idea has so much potential. And the biggest flaw by far is the love story, and it going downhill is one of the core things people remember of this story. But if I were to change it, but it was a requirement that Evie and Violet had to end up together, I'd do this. Things would largely stay the same until the kiss in the fountain scene. Evie, who had been struggling with feeling as pretty and as worthy of romance as the more feminine women she's been around, is deeply hurt by this. It makes her feel ugly and unwanted, and it causes a large enough rift that Evie completely drops Violet. They do have occasional soft moments, and he does apologize a lot to Evie, but she's way more guarded to him and he does not like it. And it begins to make him think about how flippantly he's been treating other people his whole life, and what he can do to change that. Evie does make it to the end like in the original, but she doesn't win. She's in second place though, with Selena becoming the crown princess. And Evie is given a choice between going back to her old life, albeit with a lot of perks now, and becoming a royal concubine. And all the while, all the resentment and betrayal that she's been feeling is just rising and rising, until Violet confesses his true identity, and it just makes Evie snap. She says she feels conflicted and humiliated. This whole time, she knew she was a pawn in this competition, but she never thought that the person supporting her, the one who had inspired so much confidence in her before tearing it down so cold-heartedly, and who did the work behind the scenes to help her succeed when she needed a little boost, was the one orchestrating this entire thing. And he even kissed her and toyed with her while acting like he wasn't the one in charge of this. Was this whole thing just a game to him? Was he laughing at her while pretending to care? Was she just a toy to him? She's hurt, She's confused, and she doesn't even want to believe the heartfelt speech Violet gives her, swearing his love and apologizing sincerely for all the harm he's caused her. It's too little, too late, and Evie returns home. Violet apologizes one more time, but he respects her decision and says that the palace is always open to her, but that he will give her time and that he's already been selfish enough. From there, Violet and Selena go on to rule the kingdom together. They leech his father's control away from him until he's little more than an old man wasting away in a forgotten palace, and getting rid of all the old-fashioned rules and regulations. Even without her presence, Evie has had enough of an impact on both of them that they want to create a better world for her and the others. But eventually, enough time passes that her wounds mend a bit, and Evie and Violet slowly reconnect, and after a long courtship and a lot of groveling on Violet's part, Evie decides to become a royal concubine. But with all the work she's done and all the support she has, she's decently respected in society and loved by the commoners for always advocating for them. She works well with Selena, who, after having an heir, is content to take care of the kingdom, while Evie and Violet are all lovey-dovey with their children. Sure, it's not a picture-perfect ending, but stakes would matter in this one, and there would be consequences for people's actions. The biggest issue with the ending is that it felt like the stakes were meaningless. Selena saves the day through a loophole, after it was constantly hammered in how hopeless the situation was. Granted, her bowing out was better than just her being like, nah, I refuse. She gets her mother off her back by asking, is it really an honorable victory if we have to buy our way to this position? And ends up being a rider like she wanted, while having the purchase votes invalidated and refunded. When I first read it, it didn't feel like the author had found a clever solution that Selena used to bow out gracefully. It felt like they had just made something up to just give a super forced happy ending. And rereading it, I mean, it does make sense, but it still feels pretty cheap. And at the very, very end, right when conflict was about to start, it just stopped, and we're expected to believe that things went okay in the end. Even though the Emperor is clearly a ruthless dude, given his relationship with Violet. The literal Crown Prince was keeping secrets upon secrets from his own father, and in the end, he felt like he couldn't approach him easily. This is not a situation you can wave away with a cheerful fade to white in a reference to the title. I feel like there were just a lot of loose ends that just didn't get tied up at all. Which is a shame, considering how promising it was at the beginning. In the end, I still don't regret reading the 101st Heroine. I mean, we still got a unique protagonist out of it. And commoner main characters who aren't secret royals or illegitimate noble children or divine saintesses are a rarity in this genre. And yeah, a story will grab me more if they have a unique protagonist. So I was rooting for Evie. I liked having a tomboy commoner who used her wit and spunk to overcome her problems. I liked that a lot of the story was Evie building positive relationships with other women from all walks of life. I liked the humor and I liked the little cute moments, but the story goes down because it just botches the male lead. And from there, it just goes downhill completely. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad manhwa. I mean, there are far worse male leads than Violet. I mean, just go to the Otome Isekai subreddit and ask who the worst male lead is, and you will get lots upon lots of answers. But I digress. At the very least, this is a dumb fluff manhwa that you can read to kill time. So yeah, thanks for watching my video on the 101st Heroine. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later.